Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. Coming to you from WOUB Radio, Studio B. I am Jay Warmke.
Today I'm Annie Warmke.
You certainly are. And today we're going to talk about the challenges facing the Ohio River Valley, trying to create a sustainable and vibrant economy, or Reimagining Appalachia. And we are joined by Natalia Rudiak. And Natalia, you're Special Projects Director, is that right, for Reimagine Appalachia? Did I get that right?
Indeed. So I direct a number of projects that are very special.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about those special projects and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, to start out about myself, again, my name is Natalia Rudiak, and I am born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, although with an immigrant mother from Poland, from a farming family in Poland. But I mostly grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and actually, for a period of my career, I was a city council person here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I was a two-term public servant, a Leslie Knope, if you will. If anybody is a Parks and Rec fan out there, it's very real.
So you must have been bad in a past life in order to have to serve on
I know. Whenever anybody wins an election, I always say, "Oh, I don't know whether to say congratulations or condolences." No, I'm just kidding.
I think you send sympathy card.
Yes, exactly. No, I've always been interested in public service, and as as an elected official, I worked in everything. I mean, from public health to an opioid, worked in the field of opioid addiction and overdose, and which was a big issue in my district, to public art, to sewage overflow, to sustainability and climate. So, as a jack of all trades, I was interested in, again, kind of coming into the next chapter of my career, being part of the solution. And I started working with Reimagine Appalachia, which is why I'm here.
Well, what is exactly Reimagine Appalachia?
But wait, I want to say something about that, because when I first saw that term, I thought, this is something that I have said for 30 years, literally 30 years, that we have to reimagine where we are. Because we live in a culture that never gets better, even when the rest of the country is doing better. And it doesn't seem to change no matter what is happening with the economy or progressive anything. And that people seem to just, bellyache. And I know where we are, the leadership is horrendous, and they're all sucking up to the elected people, which do nothing for us. So when I saw that Reimagine Appalachia, I say my grandma was Appalachian, and she said Appalachia, so I can't ever seem to say Appalachia.
No, I had to transition as well. I'm coming out as a person that had to transition to say Appalachia.
I'm not gonna transition.
So Annie's agreeing that there's a need. So why don't you tell us what the organization is and what you guys do?
Yeah. So Annie has an excellent point, right? And I think that in many ways, we have been left behind. The Reimagine Appalachia was essentially born out of the idea that the current economy in Appalachia, particularly in 4 states, we work primarily in 4 states. We work in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. So in the Appalachian parts of those states. And it was born out of the idea that our economy is not working for us. The economy is not working for us in our region. And so it was started around 2020, where a number of organizations got together with the idea of building a brighter future for Appalachia. And we're a coalition. So we're a coalition of over 100 organizations, and that includes labor organizations, environmental organizations, racial justice, business, and we have, in addition, over 100 elected officials who have a North Star plan, and faith leaders as well. So we're really trying to bring together some unusual suspects that don't usually talk to each other. I mean, climate, a lot of climate environmental organizations don't necessarily talk to labor organizations all the time, and sometimes maybe at odds, right? So we're trying to find those places of overlap and where we can work together. So that's the only way we're going to move forward. So we also have think tanks and research organizations to try to, piece it all together to provide the case for why we need to do certain things. It was born in 2020 out of the idea that whether it was a year from then or 5 years from then, there would be a climate bill, an infrastructure bill, or a climate infrastructure bill coming out of the federal government. I mean, you could say that even during the previous administration of that president who shall not be named, right? There was a discussion of an infrastructure bill on the table. And we wanted to make sure that Appalachia was at the table and not on the menu. And a lot of the conversations about what would be in a potential climate infrastructure bill were driven by the East and West Coast. And we wanted to have, always. We wanted to stand up. We wanted to have our own plan, our own way of doing things, like kind of bust our way into the process. And so I could talk about this for hours, but I'll just briefly say that what was created was an Appalachian climate infrastructure blueprint. And there were 5 elements of that. There was sustainable manufacturing, innovative manufacturing, clean manufacturing. So doing things like, okay, how can we create paint or bricks out of coal ash or bioplastics? How can we be part of the innovative manufacturing wave of the future? And we actually see that with some electric school buses, plants coming into the region. So that's great. We also talk about expanding broadband and modernizing the grid, which is obviously needed in our region. We talked about reviving the Civilian Conservation Corps, which some folks may not know. That was a plan originally, an FDR New Deal plan, but there are a number of bills within the current Congress to revive the Civilian Conservation Corps and essentially put millions of people back to work through doing climate infrastructure things. So we have a lot of advocacy around this to put people to work through natural infrastructure, things like creating urban green space, trails, restoration work, flood mitigation. That's all natural infrastructure. And we want to bring in people who have been caught up in the opioid abuse criminal justice system, bring them back to work into these jobs. So that's the third element of our plan. We're also looking at reclaiming the land, reclaiming the damage, plugging the thousands of oil and gas wells that we have across our region that are leaking methane and toxic gases. There are so many jobs that can be created through this, good union jobs that could be created. And the last piece is sustainable transportation, which I kind of mentioned before. So we have an Appalachian Climate Blueprint. We fought like heck to get these elements into the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, and we were pretty successful in that. So it's very exciting.
I was gonna ask you about that with Joe Manchin having such an impact on the Inflation Reduction Act. Were you guys involved with some of those discussions? Because it seems like there's a large portion of that particular bill that does focus on traditional fossil fuel extraction regions, on domestic manufacturing issues, on brownfields.
They're the ones.
Yeah. Is it all Joe Manchin? We keep patting him on the back saying, you did this, but did he do it because you guys like had pictures of him on his boat that you could leverage him with or something?
I wish. No, but I think, because we're a coalition, we have so many partners across the region, and we all started singing from the same hymn book, right? And that's really special when you have so many coalition partners that are saying the same thing and really using similar research. I should mention we have a lot of research on our website. Let me plug our website. It's Reimagine Appalachia, Reimagine Appalachia.org. Please check it out. And we have so much good information there on how many jobs can be created through these different types of industries. And I think that's a lot of the language that elected officials, whether it's senators and congressional representatives, speak, right? And that's, a lot of what people on the ground want to hear too. How does this impact my life directly? So I'd like, I believe that we had an impact on those congressional discussions.
I've heard people
And
on the
yeah,
webinars give you lots of credit, people from the government giving you lots of credit
mm,
for those changes. So well done you. So
thank you. That's great to hear.
I do have something I want to talk to you about, because you mentioned that one of the key points of your goal, your plan, has to do with broadband in rural areas. And the thing that I see where I'm sitting is that there's a lot of, in the last, since COVID, there's been a lot of play with state legislators in Ohio, and then the local chamber giving lip service to working towards broadband, but it's total BS. And it's like they're pushing back, saying, yeah, we know that we should be doing that. And we know people are clamoring for high speed internet. And we know also, this is the worst thing, that it would create economy in areas where it is so needed, still sustainable practice stability. And, you know, they'll look you right in the eye and tell you, well, I was told at a meeting, you know, don't bring it up. And then when I did, I was ostracized by the chamber people because I brought it up.
Mhm.
And this is ridiculous. And Jay and I've been fighting for 20 years, well, more than that, really, for high speed internet. And eventually, what happened was we took our business, our office, and we moved it to a town. And that's in another county. And that shouldn't happen. But we
Mm-mm.
were really, really at a point where if we wanted to grow this portion of our business, the solar installer class business, we had to.
Yeah, maybe I should just sort of throw in here, and then we'll see what you guys have on the agenda for this. Is when you're talking about broadband, there doesn't seem to be any action on the last mile kind of thing, where
Yes, that's
you're
true.
Mm,
connecting down to the household, and everybody goes, yeah, that's a problem. Well, you know what, it really is a problem. And
mhm,
how are you gonna fix that? We see hospitals getting it, occasionally you see schools
A
getting it, that kind of
library.
thing. But it's not until, you know, when you're talking to the officials and they go, well, they can go to the, you know, to the high school for broadband or whatever, and I go, oh, and if you want to make a phone call, you can go down to the post office and wait in line. You know, I mean, people have phones in their homes, they need broadband in their homes.
It's
mhm,
so
mhm,
bad, Natalia, that one of the
mhm,
women that I work with that do webinars and things together, like this week, for example, we needed to talk on the phone, and she was disconnected or I couldn't hear her. It took an hour to finish the conversation. At one point, she got it, the phone system kicked her off. And it's an hour to do the business. It was really important business, um, where we're putting together Women in Ag dinner, and it's going to make money for our region and everything. And here we are fighting just to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
ridiculous. It's very,
mhm,
very frustrating. It just feels like, why just give it up?
Okay, so
mhm,
we've ranted at you.
It's not your
mhm.
fault. Well
I'm
done you
I'm
for
sure I'm
trying.
sure this is the first time you've heard this as a problem, right?
Yeah, right. Well, oh gosh, I mean, we want to put together a video of every single one of our webinars, and every single time there's some kind of snafu, right? Where you can say, oh, I can't hear you. Oh, we dropped you. I'll turn the video off.
So true.
I mean, we all have it across Appalachia. I mean, we certainly have partners that do our calls that can never do the video, like can never do a Zoom call, can only do audio because the broadband simply isn't there. And so we again, if you go to our website, we have some research around broadband. We're working with our partners. And when I say partners, a lot of our partners on the broadband issue actually are labor unions, because there are jobs that can be created from this. And again, this is an incentive that um, we'd like to think that local officials would be able to leverage. But one of the things that our latest broadband report, one of our
Okay.
latest broadband
Yep.
reports.
Natalia,
Oh,
before you get into that, let me interrupt it here for a second to let everybody know that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. coming to you from Studio B, WOUB Radio in Athens, Ohio, reminding you it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
Oh, man. And thank God.
All right, thank God. So,
Mhm.
okay, so sorry for interrupting you there, Natalia, but yeah, tell us how you're going to fix the
Yeah, there's
broadband issue in the next month.
yeah, how we're gonna fix it. Well, we have a report that has some recommendations for best practices or how we think that this issue can be tackled. Now, again, as a former elected official and as a current advocate and public policy wonk, there's no easy answer, right? We need pushing from the inside, pushing from the outside. And you have to figure out where those pain points are, right? I hate to say pain points or trigger points in anything, right? If it's not the community meeting, is it a state office? So, for example, one of the things that we discuss is seeing, and every state is different, right? But maybe state legislators should authorize the Public Service Commission to regulate broadband as an essential utility, which can then, offer the ability to have these projects be more publicly regulated, and invest in kind of these middle mile networks to support broadband delivery. Another example of one of these practices that we have that we're recommending is actually talking to the Biden administration of creating a White House broadband office or some kind of alternative mechanism for achieving some of these broadband policies that serve the public good. So what I just brought up, for example, is a federal solution, or at least a federal mechanism, and then there's a state mechanism, and then there's local mechanisms, which I obviously I see that you have a lot of frustration with, but we have to find where those points are and advocate for them wherever we can. I would say if people are interested in the broadband issue, again, to please reach out to us. We do have an ongoing broadband team. And it's a mix of researchers and advocates and labor unions to figure out how we can really push this issue.
Well,
So-
let me give you an example of something that happened. I'm interrupting Annie here, but
Okay.
I've been on these commissions for a while, and nothing seems to gets done. But a while back, AT&T, when they were wanting to merge with Southwestern Bell, agreed to provide broadband to all of their customers, DSL broadband, and that was part of the agreement for the merger. Then, as soon as the merger went through, they said, "Oh, that thing we said we would do, well, we're really not going to do it," and government didn't step in. But
Mhm.
then, what they did in our particular on the ridge where our farm is located, is they decided that instead of providing broadband to their customers, they'd simply rip up all of the landlines and
Mhm.
stop servicing that area. So from our farm and maybe one or two down the road, you continue on. There's no cellular service, there's no phone service, there's no, let alone broadband, there's no telephone service for these
Mhm.
homes, probably 70 homes. So if they need to make a 911 phone call, they got to get in their car and
Mhm.
drive until they can get service. Now,
Mhm.
this is, I would say it's a third world nation, but third world nations have cellular
Well,
service,
that's right, because they don't have
It's,
the infrastructure to support.
I mean,
Well, let
so
me.
how do we? I mean, it's unacceptable. And when you talk to these officials, they just go, "Yeah, yeah, that's a problem," and
Well,
you go,
Mhm.
"All right, so fix it."
well,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think they give lip service, but I know recently in the last couple of years, there have been in the state of Ohio, they've sent out these sort of bidding process to different providers, and they sort of chopped up areas and said, how about if you want to, provide service in this area, but they can't get anybody to do it because they don't
Mhm.
want to invest in rural Ohio. And so
Mhm.
my thinking is that how do we make it like the local chambers idea? They have
Mhm.
their broadband. They love to play lip service. Oh, that's terrible that you don't have service. Um, but we
Hmm.
have representatives, our state, our federal representative, he just sucks. He's a moron. And the things he puts out that he's working on are like, you need to get a life. You don't even read anything. So what I'm getting at is how are we able to push? I mean, I've presented all kinds of ideas. I've sent research. I spoke on behalf of the people in my area
what we
to
can
the
do
government.
is band together with a whole bunch of other organizations and speak with a unified voice for the people of Appalachia. How's that for an idea there?
Well, we have tried, but maybe it wasn't
Natalia?
the right people.
All right.
So Natalia, we're
Well-
here. We want to speak for the people, our neighbors, because it's awful.
Yeah. So let's see. One of the other. So let me put it this way: a couple of the stakeholders that I work with two different stakeholder groups, in addition to others, but I'll bring out two that I work with. So one of the stakeholder groups that I work with, of course, as a former local elected official, I have a special place in my heart for local elected officials.
Me too, but it's not the same kind of special.
No. I mean, believe me, as a local elected official, it's not like I worked with heavenly angels, right? Like, it's not like I worked with a chorus of angels. I get it. I absolutely get it. I get it more than maybe you can even know. So I get it. In trying to work with other local elected officials, I got to know all stripes. That being said, the local elected officials that have endorsed our Appalachian Climate Blueprint are the folks, that we're excited about making change with. And they're from small towns of 200 to large cities like Pittsburgh, to counties, to townships. And so we're trying to band together folks that have the right idea going on, and to learn from each other, and to work with other sticks in the mud that they may have on their council or their township or their
That's a
board.
good one. I'm gonna
Yeah.
remember.
So we're really trying, right? And a lot of our local elected officials are just like you, right? I mean, they're everybody from the local little league coach to the local farmers to the greenhouse workers to everybody. So they're just local elected officials. They're just like us, and they're trying to make the good change. So we're trying to connect those folks to the good ideas and to the camaraderie that they can feel, that they're not alone in trying to make change in their towns. And I also work with the faith community. So I basically facilitate our faith and action team at Reimagine Appalachia. And so we have on board everybody from the Evangelical Environmental Network to the West Virginia Council of Churches to a number of interfaith organizations. And we are jumpstarting a community organizing model. It's called the Reimagine Your Community model. And we have a toolkit. We're actually updating our faith and action site as I speak. But we are launching a toolkit to help lay people of faith or faith leaders jumpstart a visioning process for a sustainable economic vision. For it could be a few city blocks, it could be a village, it could be a county. I mean, some of our counties have a few thousand people, right? So we're looking for people of faith as a pilot program to jumpstart these conversations, because we're finding that a lot of people of faith can rise above the divisiveness, some of the political divisiveness that we have in our communities. They can kind of just bring that additional voice that may not be expected in these conversations. And we have a lot of our faith leaders from these partner organizations who are stepping out and saying the word climate for the first time, right? And that's a huge deal. We actually got an article in The Guardian about how they call us Southern, by the way. They're calling us Southern, how Southern ministers can change the conversation around climate. And so I don't know, what your relationship is with faith or faith leaders, but maybe I would love to speak further about our toolkit. We're looking for pilot communities right now to bring people together, bring the Chamber together, bring the Rotary together, bring some of our other churches together, other places of worship, bring folks like yourself, bring some of the activists together. Not everybody's going to hold hands and sing, Kumbaya, but at least there could be some folks in the room to create through this toolkit, through this process, create a vision, a holistic vision for where we want the community to go. And through that vision, take people along or leave them behind on where we want to go. So I'd love to speak more about that at some point.
I would love to talk to you about it too.
Okay, but for today, we've got about 2 minutes to have you. How about telling us some of the successes that you've had or that you perceive? I know you've only been around, you said about 2 years, 3 years as an organization, but have you had anything that you're like pointing to saying, hey, we done good?
Yes. So we are just basically really excited about the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, that is huge. We got so much in it. We got so many of our priorities in it. So we're really excited about that. But we've also developed close relationships with federal agencies. So the Department of Energy, the Department of Labor, the Department of Interior. And so, yes, there's the congressional process, but then there's also like the executive branch and all those federal agencies. And with these federal agencies, we are advancing conversations about the guidelines for some of how this funding will be spent, particularly guidelines around those jobs and what strings should be attached to those jobs. And so we have worked with the Department of Interior, for example, to create draft guidance on how those jobs should be paid, and there should be apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship programs, so they're career jobs. And so we're also okay, so the Department of Energy now is requiring for some funding streams, a community benefits plan attached to the application for some funding streams. That's another conversation. We can have another conversation about community benefits plans. But we're excited that we're seeing some strings attached to some of this upcoming funding that will help us, quote unquote, win the win for our communities. Because yes, we won this, but now we have to get some of this funding siphoned to our communities. Right. So yes, we won the wins. Well, yes, we won the money, kind of, but now we have to we're in phase 2.0 now, where we're trying to poise our communities to get some of this funding.
Okay, well, Natalia, I can see we're going to have you back on several more times. All right. Okay, well, you have been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank our guest today, Natalia Rudiak. Natalia, thank you very much from Reimagine Appalachia. We want to thank our Emmy Award-winning producer, Adam Rich, and we want to thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is?
My Appalachian grandma said, play nice with others, clean up your own mess, and eat your veggies because they taste delish.
All right. Till next time. Bye-bye.